If anybody's had the luxury of running into Paul at any events, he is an absolute force to be reckoned with. You are such a positive light in our space. So I was really excited that you agreed to take on moderating this panel. So I'm going to leave the floor to you, gentlemen, to kick things off.
Thank you, Caitlin. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for joining us. If you want to take maybe just like 30 seconds to a minute to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll start with you, Jim.
Great. Thanks, Paul. Happy to be here today. Hope everyone's doing well. I'm Jim Lippy. I am CEO of SaaS Alerts and a former MSP.
Awesome. Darren?
Yeah, my name is Darren Catan. I created Emibot. I have a Emibot, the immense robot. Our MSP was Immense Networks. We still run it, and glad to be here.
Awesome. And Bruce?
Good morning or afternoon, depending where you are. My name is Bruce Mallion. I'm Vice President, Product Evangelist for Vasion. We do, workflow and automation software, and I kind of been doing this since 1994. So I've seen the evolution of automation right from its early stages. So a lot of good stuff.
Awesome. And Jim, I love your shirt. That's good.
Thank you very much.
Love it.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about automation today. And one of the things, just kind of in light of what we're hearing already, I want to look at automation, but specifically with AI and kind of how the two tie together, or maybe how they're separate. If anybody, like Caitlin said, has run into me or knows me, one of my favorite things to do is to take the bull SH out of IT and cut straight to the chase and find out, how we can be better as human beings, how we can be better as business owners, and serve our clients in an amazing way. So, in regards to AI, do you guys think, and we can kind of go around and kind of get your thoughts, but do you guys think that AI is the silver bullet to automation? Darren, we'll go with you first.
Sure. I've learned to I was really glad to see in the last talk talking about AI and like the security problems that that could be present with it. I think the way we're going to see AI develop is kind of the way Microsoft has been injecting it into different products, and we've seen a lot of other products incorporated in different areas, right? To me, it's more like gluing things together. Like, when you start typing in an email and suddenly you get the shadow text, no different than when you're in a script editor and you get the shadow code with suggestions and things like that. It is far from the silver bullet because, man, sometimes it seems real dumb with the things that it suggests. But sometimes it's like, I could work with that, So I think that's where I think we're going to see it go.
Yeah. On that note, real quick, why do you think that is? Because I've had that same experience. Because I use AI, I use ChatGPT all day. Started diving into Copilot recently, and sometimes I find myself like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, and then other times I'm like, this is the dumbest thing in the world. Like, it's totally spits out garbage, and like, this doesn't make sense.
It's a context problem, in my opinion. There's only so much you could stuff into the prompt to get it to fully understand what it is you're trying to do. Right. And so, one of the techniques that I use is add a comment before you start adding code. Like, this is what I'm going to try to do. This function will do blah, blah, blah. And then it has a better idea of what you're getting ready to write, but like, it's still not to the point where it could take the 32 megs of text code that is Emibot and know all of our conventions and everything to where I could say, oh yeah, let's go ahead and add this new feature and have it wire up the UI and the back end and write tests for it, right? Like, that would be wild if it could. It can't fit it all in its brain. I think it's where we're at. I think we'll overcome it, but that's why.
What about you, Jim?
So to your question about silver bullet, I don't believe in silver bullets because there's a reason why we have that question, because they're so rare. That being said, I do think that AI is a massive accelerator and that we're now able to do things, obviously, that we've never been able to do as fast as we're able to do them. Specifically, I believe in the cybersecurity space where I am, SaaS Alerts. I just don't believe that humans can process everything that's coming at them right now in cybersecurity without either machine learning or AI. it's absolutely become necessary
I would agree.
to have in place to be able to keep up with the volume of threats that are literally attacking MSP customers every single day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Bruce, what about you?
Same thing. I don't believe in any silver bullet, but it's crazy the amount, like any trade show you go to, any email you read, it's AI everywhere, right? It can be so confusing to MSPs, to their clients, etc. So one of the things I think on AI, right? And I'm going to go back to the 1970s for a second. When computers were first started going and they started picking up speed, as companies embrace that technology, those are the ones that really thrived. Same thing with AI. So any MSP that is embracing the technology and learning it, figuring out how it fits their business model is important. But with any AI solution, you still need human oversight, right? It's not going to magically just pop in, work, and like Darren was saying, automatically write the perfect text and email it out. There's still lots of oversight that needs to happen. So I truly believe AI, as Jim said, is going to get us there faster in a lot of ways. But once again, oversight is key right now.
Yeah,
I think,
Paul, specifically, I know of MSPs that work with us that they have 40,000 users and they're managing a full-blown SOC with 2 employees because they're leveraging essentially, AI and machine learning capabilities. And from an economic perspective, right, like that changes the game for an MSP if you're able to really harness that level of automation that we're now calling AI and machine learning.
well, I like what Bruce was saying. If we go back to the 70s, we think about the evolution of computers. Something I think about a lot is how sometimes the first wave of people that go through the mousetrap sort of get stuck there, right? So you think about banks, like financial industries that still use COBOL. Why? Because they heavily invested in like the first iteration of it, and now they're stuck with it forever, right? This is why you see COBOL developers making $250,000 now, right? It's wild. But so the way I look at AI, and I tell my guys all the time, let's not be the first mouse over the trap because it does feel dangerous. It's exciting, but it also feels dangerous. And I also feel like there's a lot of people that are a lot smarter than me working on it right now to make it less dangerous. Right. So, and that I think that kind of leads well into, where are we in terms of just automation in general as an industry? We've got the first big waves of automation tools sort of came out in like the early 2000s, and now we're starting to see the second wave of these tools start to come out. So it's no longer like, can we even make this work? It's more like, let's refine this, right? And so I think you guys and myself included are part of that sort of second wave, and I think that's what we should explore. What does that mean?
Do you think it's the second wave or the first wave? Because my experience, so I run an MSP in South Florida. We use automation tools, and I'm a part of peer groups, and that's kind of one of the topics that we talk about a lot is like, automation. And we go, oh, we're going to automate stuff, and we're like, okay, what are you automating? And they're like, well, we're going to automate stuff.
Right.
And it's one of those kind of like what Bruce was saying, like it's a buzzword, AI automation. We need to be careful throwing that around because I think it can be dangerous. And I like that perspective of getting stuck in that mousetrap. That's very interesting. So do you think it's the first wave or the second wave?
I think we're on the second wave of automation tools in general, but we're definitely on the first wave of AI tools.
Yeah, I would actually even double down on that and say it's not even the first wave yet. It's the ripple before we even get to the full first wave.
Yeah, because so many of these things are just open AI wrappers, right? Like anybody could go and create one right now. So, I'm curious to see, when the newer stuff comes out, what that'll even look like. Maybe capabilities that we couldn't even imagine because we're constrained to what OpenAI did.
Yeah, I think going whether you call it a first wave or second wave, it's like I said, definitely first wave for AI, but robotic process automation, RPA, that's been in products for a long time. So there's been a lot of system level automation that's been around for 10 or 15 years. And what we're starting to see, and we talk about this a lot in our industry, is the concept of hyperautomation is kind of going in and figuring out where are all the pieces in a company that you're trying to automate. And eventually with the AI tools, you're going to be able to get to orchestrated processing or orchestrated automation. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of, we see that once again, still in the first, wave of things to come.
Right. I like that concept of hyperautomation. I think it goes really well with where we are as an industry. We kind of have to have that hyperautomation to keep up nowadays.
Yeah. Well, and Darren, one of your concepts on hyperautomation, right? Every business has some level of it, right? But you can have 15 or 20 different processes automated across different line of business, but you have to truly harness the efficiency. You got to get to orchestrated processing or, process orchestration. And that's the thing that we're really focused on. And those are the types of AI tools that we're looking to invest in to help our customers and our MSPs get there.
Bruce, can you explain to the layperson about what you're talking about and just kind of expand on that?
Well, the concept of hyperautomation is really about looking at all processes that are currently automated in the company and ones that could be, right? And so really what you're trying to do is you're trying to come up with a game plan to say, here's all the stuff that we're doing today. Here's all the stuff we want to do. And between using the new AI tools, how can we orchestrate this in a very efficient manner, right? Like that's what you're trying to do. And that's what we're trying to do at Vasion is really kind of take out any inefficiency in workflow processes. And so that's what we mean, because hyperautomation, yeah, it's probably a newer term. It's been out for the last couple of years, but when you break it down, it's been around for a long time. It's system level RPA tasks and data extraction. And I think we're going to talk about that in the next question on, what we're going to bring up. So I'm not going to basically talk about all the other features yet, but that's kind of my best 30-second summary.
Jim, you have anything to add?
I would only say this, as I'm listening. One thing that really kind of pops into my head is, I've been in the MSP industry since 2003. And that was back when essentially every MSP was a quote unquote body shop. And for every 10 customers you brought on, or 12 customers you brought on, or 14 if you were lucky, you had to bring out a tech, right? And we've evolved so much as an industry to the point now where, you started seeing 10 years ago, private equity starting to invest in the MSP space. And that's only accelerated. Now to the point, I'm on 2 boards of private equity backed MSPs and they just can't get enough of the space. They're all in. So I think what has facilitated all of that investment is the fact now that we've evolved from body shops to hyperautomation organizations that actually have true leverage.
But there's still a challenge there, right? Because a lot of these big PE firms that I've talked to, they struggle with the existing tool sets, right? Because they weren't made for that sort of scale. They were developed before the term at scale even came out, right?
Well,
so the guys who are like merging the databases and doing all that stuff are like struggling hard.
But take away like the actual tools themselves. The idea that this stuff can be automated now, and there's a level of efficiency in MSPs that allow you to get to scale, right? That changes the game and will increase. We'll see even additional, investment dollars come into this industry because of it, which big picture, I think is a great thing for the entire industry.
I don't know about that. I think PE money is the devil.
What's that?
I think PE money is the devil.
I mean, it drives a lot of jobs and opportunity.
Maybe.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings, both positive and negative about that too. But let's go down that rabbit hole for a second. So, when people hear AI and automation, they go, "Oh my God, my job is going to be lost." Do you guys see that being kind of the future where we're going to work ourselves out of jobs? And I'm asking that because I don't want to be the guy going, we're riding horses and buggies for the rest of our life. This car thing will never catch on. Like, I don't want to be the naysayer of our future, but I don't see that future where we've automated everything and we're sitting on a beach sipping Mai Tais for the rest of our life. Like that, it just doesn't seem like a reality to me.
It'll be more like the movie Idiocracy,
Great reference.
But no, I do think there's going to be a widened gap And Joe, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I'll be short. I think there's going to be guys who like truly understand the automation and they make the tools, and then you're going to be able to hire lower level people to solve more complex problems because the tools are filling those gaps that previously required someone with a deeper level of skill to do.
Yeah. What
This
about
is
you,
actually my favorite question because I contemplate it a lot. We're not going to be able to automate everything, right?
No.
But I do believe that there's going to be less people doing more with the tools that are available, which ultimately means that there's less people employed. So long term, I believe that advancement in AI will actually increase unemployment throughout the world. And it's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen next year. But eventually, I believe that will happen. And there's going to be big gaps between, the companies that are really taking advantage of this and people that really prosper from it, and a lot of people that don't. And I've got a 19-year-old son who's going off to college next year. And I think about this a lot, not necessarily in the context of my career. I think it more in the context of his career, and what it's going to mean for him.
Yeah, he's gonna have to ride the wave.
Yeah. Bruce, what about you?
Well, I'm going to compare like what Jim was saying. Eventually, I think it could reduce the workforce in certain areas. But I'm going to go back to workflow automation over the last 20 years, right? At first, everybody's like, hey, when you put in workflow, it's going to be more efficient. You're going to have less people doing it. Well, it's just shifted their job tasks. It basically took those people that were involved in some of these basic processes, and now they're doing more high value tasks. I see the same thing with automation. It's going to improve a lot of things. It's going to basically get more efficiency, but I think it can also take your staff and get them back to relationship building. That's, I think, a thing that over the last, I'd say 5 years with the cloud, or 10 years as that has emerged, relationships haven't been as deep with customers. And I think that's one of the things AI will allow us to get back to is we'll have more time to actually spend in those relationships. And that's one of the areas we're focusing on. So, I mean, I agree with you, Jim. There's going to be some downsides. I just don't know if that's going to be in the next 10 years, maybe 20 years.
And to counter it, there's a
I think
concept
it's I just have a follow-up question for you there, Bruce.
Mm-hmm.
I understand what you're saying. It will give us more time to focus on relationships. That being said, as we could become more dependent on technology and AI, the generation, look, relationships are important to you and me and Darren and Paul. This is like how we grew up, right? But are relationships going to mean that much to the generations that follow? Because they're so dependent. I walk into a room, right, with my son and his friends, and they're not interacting like they should be. They're literally on their phones watching TikTok when they could actually be talking about stuff. So I just wonder how important people are going to be focused that want to focus on the relationships.
Well,
So idiocracy, Darren, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. I look at it, just look at SaaS in the last 5 years, right? SaaS companies, have been very transactional, right? They go in, you sell a product, you get the renewal out, someone contacts you once a year, but you've seen that shift in SaaS companies going, hey, guess what? There's so many choices out there. You better start relationship building because they can go somewhere else. So I've actually seen it in our industry for sure, where we've had to basically take a step back and really look at relationships again to make sure we're not just contacting clients right before the renewals. And so I still see value there, Jim, but you're right. I don't have the 100% answer that, oh yeah, relationships are key. I just see it in the next 2 to 3 years still being very important in the space that we're in today. Now, 10 years from now,
but don't think of it in the context of our generation, right?
Correct.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, think about it from kids that are in junior high or high school today, right? So 10, 15 years from now, what's going to be important to them? Will relationships really be that much more important to them and want to invest in them because they have the time to do so?
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
I want to point out for the younger generation here. All right, there's a difference between scrolling on TikTok, which I do believe is bad, to people who like are gaming together. Because sometimes the reason your kid is staring at their phone is because they actually have a friend who lives on the other side of the world that they feel a deeper connection with than the person sitting across the table from them.
I totally agree with that. Totally
Right.
agree. My son is right on that list, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then there's another thing to counter the, and I'm not saying this is like a, but just something to think about. What are you not doing right now that your customers think you are doing? Right. And so you know how like there's always something to do. Like if you ever hire somebody and they're like, oh, all right, man, well, I don't have a whole lot left to do. So like whatever. And you're like, dude, there's like literally like anything. Cause as like the business owner, you always know where like all the skeletons are. Like, oh yeah, go clean this up, go fix this, go get that, da 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 da. Right. So I guess what excites me about like this automation or hyper automation, whatever it is we're talking about, is we're actually now starting to potentially be able to deliver the things that our customers actually think we're doing. Like they in their brains, maybe they think that we're like logging into all the computers and making sure everything is right when they sign a managed service contract. Like nobody's really doing that, right? Like I don't know what they think, but like I feel that it'll allow us, and it's same as Bruce's point, focus on the business stuff and not worry that, oh man, I wasn't watching the backups. Oh my God, I didn't check on, like that sort of stuff is going to sort of be handled and you can feel more confident about it. So you can focus on the relationship. There's always work.
Yeah. And I want to be cognizant of time. I do want to ask you guys one more question kind of to wrap up, and I agree with you, Darren. I think it's important, as MSPs, we have to be able to tell that story. So we have to be able to communicate what we're doing and what value we're adding when they don't know what we're doing. When things are working, it's great. Nobody ever calls us on the phone and go, hey, everything's working. I just wanted to let you know. It's the exact opposite. Everything's on fire. So we have to, it's up to us to be able to tell that story with our clients and continually tell that story. Because if they don't hear from us, they're going to wonder why they're paying that bill every month. So, next question I have for you guys is, what is the next generation automation for MSPs? What does that look like? And I wrote down here, what is phase 2? We talked about possibly being in phase 1, maybe even before that, phase 2, but like, what is this next generation? What is the future? And let's say we're sitting here in 3 years doing this. What do you think the landscape's going to look like, or even your companies? Jim, let's start with you.
Well, I mean, I guess I think about my company every day, so it's easier to answer that in the context of like what we're going to be doing. I would say that like we're right now built on a foundation of machine learning, and there's a difference between machine learning and AI. We're going to ramp that up even more, and legitimate AI will be in play at every level of what we do. So think about it right now. Most MSPs really only care about Microsoft 365. But imagine essentially being able to see all the patterns across every single application a customer is using. Therefore, being able to properly distinguish what is going on with that specific user, reducing false negatives or false positives, I should say, right? So from a security standpoint, that's huge. I believe that we're going to be able to do all that correlation faster and make it real time for people. And then also, from a support perspective, I think AI is going to be able, to allow us to, see very common, issues and then be able to properly and quickly identify them through AI and give answers immediately to our partners with, instead of a 24-hour SLA, with a 1-hour SLA or less. I think 3 years from now, I feel pretty confident, at least from our perspective, that's what we're going to do.
Nice. Bruce, what about you?
Well, I'm going to answer twofold, right? So one of the things you talked about MSPs in general, I think some of the AI tools that are going to be used or anything to do with predictive analytics are going to be part of it. Basically self remediation tools that are going to be able to do some of this stuff that's kind of out there now, but in 3 years, I think will be the norm. From our standpoint, at Vasion, right now we do use some AI tech in our current stack, around document extraction. But over the next, not even 3 years, but over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, it's going to advance into summarization of data, auto classification of data, creating new content on the fly. So a lot of that stuff is going to be in our platform as, core code going forward. So, I mean, we see a lot of improvements from AI around automation.
Darren.
Next generation of MSP tools or automation tools are not going to be a bucket of Legos you have to build yourself. It's going to be all the things that every MSP has to do. I firmly believe that as much of a snowflake as I thought we were as an IT company, when I started going to conferences, I started realizing that we were, in fact, just like everyone else. And we're all building the same exact things with our automation tools, right? So the way I see it going is the automation tool will begin to tell you these are the things you're going to want to automate in your environment. And here are the things that are available. And if there's some new popular tool that comes out, there's going to be an integration and it's going to just configure itself, right? That's where I think it's going to go. I think with machine learning and AI, we'll be able to go and just extract a configuration from a new client environment and just plug that in as code. So that way, if there is an incident, you just rebuild the whole thing, infrastructure as code, right? That's the way I see it going. And you're not going to have to do it yourself. It'll be curated.
And again, does that, me as an MSP, is that reducing my head count on my staff significantly?
Probably. Or allowing you to onboard more customers faster with the same amount of people.
You agree with that, Bruce?
I agree with that. The thing is, the whole thing with automation is, from a business standpoint, it's about scalability and increasing your reach with clients. So yeah, absolutely. Listen, as AI comes in, if they implement it properly and do the research, I don't necessarily believe that they're going to have an immediate staff reduction. It's all about growing your business. So.
Jim, what do you think?
I think it's going to have a profound effect on the economics of every MSP. You're going to be able to add a lot more clients and scale a lot faster with the same amount of people you have today. And I think you're going to see a bigger gap between the haves and the have-nots.
Well, as a counter to that, I think though that these next generation tools, if they're adopted by smaller MSPs, almost like democratizes it, right? Because we go up against, when we get like a large customer that has like years invested into building out their automation, and there's like one guy who's like the brainiac, and then I have to like basically steal his cookies from him because I'm like, yeah, all that is already done in this platform. So like, sorry, you just wasted the last 8 years of your life. So I think what happens is you got these smaller guys who are adopting tools like ours, right, that are able to now immediately get the capabilities of these massive firms, right? So I do think that there's an opportunity for these small guys to leapfrog the older, slower moving companies.
Awesome.
I mean, it's a great point. I also believe that from a pricing scale perspective, there are significant advantages right now for people to buy different products and tool sets at a very low cost, which gives them advantages that I think I see only getting bigger and bigger with MSPs from, one person all the way up to, 1,500 employees at this point.
Yeah, and there's a big difference between those MSPs and we're around 30 people, so we're kind of in this weird adolescent stage from a revenue and a staffing standpoint, and we've been around for 10 years, so growing pains, we're feeling growing pains. We're big enough to need like middle management and start to look into some of these things and automate processes and things that we're doing so that we can onboard clients quicker and more efficiently. But we're still a small-ish company, and these things are expensive and it adds up. And every time we add a new tool, we really, if we're smart businessman, which I try to be, me and my business partner, we need to increase our seat price. So we have to look at that. It's an economy scale thing, and it's difficult sometimes, man. It's really difficult. But
yeah.
we were talking internally the other day. I think it was Kyle Christensen, or I think he had said it, but he was talking about the MSPs basically being boot camp. Like we are the Navy SEALs of IT companies, or IT people rather. I started as an in-house IT guy, and I remember being an in-house IT guy. I played a lot of ping pong, but we've had a ping pong table at our office, but in the MSP world, like
There's no time for that.
we're moving
There's no
too
time for
fast.
ping pong.
No, there's not.
Yeah.
There's not. So anyways, we got to wrap up, guys. Thank you for joining me, Jim, Bruce, Darren. Appreciate your insights and appreciate what you're doing here for our industry.
Awesome.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.